Hello and welcome to Discourse A to the Level 3 series. So in this video today I'm going to talk about silence. Now silence is a very beneficial spiritual practice. It can bring you lots of healing, transformation. It can enable you to build up more energy. It can give you clarity. It can give you insight, and it can give you a state of vibratory sanctuary out of the 3D. When the 3D world gets very intense, and it's possible to come back into a place of silence and refill yourself from that silence with Source. Now, Source doesn't talk, so to speak. Source doesn't make noise. Source is like the unchanging and ever-present reality. It's like it's inside of us all the time. The only variable is whether it's hidden or visible. Now, the way you make Source more visible is you simply remove what's in the way, and usually what's in the way is thought processes, thinking processes, or disturbing emotions that are cluttering up the energy field. Now, when the emotions are calm and still, and your mental processes have slowed down, and you're not thinking so much, then it's possible to come into a place of very deep peace, a place of very deep stillness. And in that stillness, there's a great power there, and that power can become manifest in your life when you take the time to go into that place of silence more often. When you make silence a part of your daily practice, you build up this strength of that power, and that vibratory sanctuary is readily available to you. So whenever you need to refill your energy body or get some additional insight or clarity about something, it's possible to go back into that space very quickly and derive benefit from that place. Now, silence can only become manifest in your life when that thought process slows down. So if you have a busy mind and your thoughts are going bang, 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 bang non-stop, or you're thinking about the future, thinking about the past, wondering what's happening at work, or getting caught up in any kind of thinking story like that, you're taking yourself out of center, out of silence, and into a place of duality. This whole reality of duality is fueled by thought. If you want to perceive a deeper reality within, it's necessary to get some perspective on your thought process. It's necessary to go into a space that exists beyond the thought, and that space that exists beyond the thought is basically pure awareness. Now, if you investigate the pure awareness, what qualities that pure awareness has, you'll find that pure awareness is ever present. It's in all places. It's out there. It's inside. It's everywhere. And you'll find that pure awareness is inherently quiet. Now, in that quiet is the greatest peace, the greatest sense of stillness, and the power that you need to drive your life forward can come from this place of silence. So how do you get into that place of silence? How do you tune into that power? Well, it's basically about familiarizing yourself with that state of quiet. It's about just noticing the quiet, noticing the awareness that exists between thoughts. And when you notice this awareness, this quiet, this stillness, you just gently rest your awareness there. You don't try and think about quiet, because that will just kick off a series of thought forms that will then distract you into thinking about something totally different than silence. You don't think about silence, you don't try and create a concept of silence. Instead, you just notice where silence is, and then you focus your awareness into that space. You can breathe very deeply when you notice that silence, and that space of silence will expand and envelop your being with peace, with stillness, with healing, rejuvenation, clarity and insights. It's a very beneficial practice. Now, the other benefit of silence is it trains you in holding energy. Sometimes when we get supercharged from source, we have a massive mystical experience, or we get spiked by the full moon or solar flares or some other astrological alignment. What happens is our energy can become very excited, and excited energy is good on one level because it stimulates, it activates, it gets the energy flowing. But if that excitation gets too intense, what can happen is you won't be able to hold the energy, and instead you'll find something in the outer to attach to, and then you'll end up leaking the energy to that outside phenomenon. Now, what usually happens when people get too much energy, they start eating dense food, for example, and that's an example of suppressing that excited energy rather than holding it. So when the energy gets too intense, if you're spiked by some kind of outer phenomenon, or you just feel your energy building, then instead of trying to control that energy, the best thing to do is to go into a place of silence and just sit with it. Just notice it doing that. If it gets really intense, if you're in a place of detached awareness where you're just witnessing it, that intensity won't disturb you, it won't distract you as much. And the spiritual work of silence is to be able to stay in a place of silence and awareness whilst there's some kind of energetic disturbance or excitation happening in the outer. So if you can be silent more in your life, you'll be able to hold your energy. The idea is to turn this excited energy into a very strong and grounded presence, and that can be a practice. It can take a long time to actually pull that off, but it actually has massive benefits. If you get super spiked by a solar flare, for example, and you don't ground that energy in, you don't bring it into your base chakras in a place of meditation silence, the energy will just go like that, and then some distraction will come up, and that distraction will consume that additional energy, and as a result you don't retain any of that additional energy. Now, the idea of ascension work is to continue to accumulate energy in your lower chakras, and it's the same with manifestation. If you want to manifest in your life, it's necessary to accumulate all of this excited energy and hold on to it by bringing it down into your lower chakras with awareness in a place of silence and contemplation, instead of looking for distractions in the outer to invest it in. So this is one of the practices connected with meditation, is to try and avoid getting caught up in distractions. Usually what happens with a distraction is you get pulled into it and you don't realise till afterwards that it was a distraction and that it consumed your energy. There's all kinds of distractions in the 3D world. There's also all kinds of distractions that your ego can manufacture. The ego does a very good job at finding reasons for you to come out of stillness, to come out of that source awareness. It is very nature to do that. Now, you can't force it not to do that. If you do that, it's just going to react, and the distractions that come up are going to be far more intense. The only way you can actually tame the ego and develop some power over it is just to allow it to be, just witness what the ego is doing. Look at how your mind reacts to external distractions. If you pay attention to your thoughts will start slowing down. When your thoughts slow down, you have more control over them. If you're thinking too quickly, those very quick thoughts will act like impulses or triggers to go and act or react in the outer. Now, sometimes you don't want to act, sometimes you don't want to react, sometimes the best thing to do is just to sit and just to be. And the reason why this is, if you pay attention to Source, Source doesn't draw attention to itself, Source doesn't make noise, Source doesn't behave like a loose cannon. You sit out there in nature in the stillness and you just observe Source. It doesn't crop up and suddenly create some massive disturbance or get distracted. If Source got distracted, then all life as we know it would become disrupted, because we're all taking sustenance and Source on some level, and if Source stops working as it should be and becomes distracted, then that's going to cause all kinds of chaos in this reality. So that's just an outer reflection that shows you Source is forever present, it's always there, it's still, it doesn't react, it doesn't get distracted, it just stays present. Now, if you want to enter into a deeper relationship with Source, a deeper intimacy with Source, then ideally we need to become like Source, and to become like Source we need to embody its qualities. So Source is grounded, Source is anchored, Source is ever present, Source is just a witness, Source doesn't react, Source doesn't get disturbed, and Source doesn't manufacture distractions for us to get caught up into. So the remedy for distraction and a busy mind is deeper meditation, a deeper meditation in silence. Now, if you use my music meditations, the guided ones, they are meditations for particular processes, particular healing processes. But if you just want to silence your thoughts, then you just want to be in silence, sit, face a white wall, or sit in a quiet location, nature where it's still and quiet, and just sit and be there with that. Breathe in deeply, slowly, with consciousness, and just notice the qualities of awareness and look for that silence. It's impossible to find the silence if your mind is busy. It's impossible to actually seek silence as such, because silence is there. The only thing that's possible to do is stop doing what gets in the way of you becoming more aware of that deeper silence. And silence is a way of building up a massive amount of spiritual power. This is sometimes why for days or weeks at a time I don't have much to do with the outer world. I've just been silence with what I'm doing. I'm recharging my energy field, I'm building up the energy, I'm holding the energy, and I'm reflecting upon various spiritual matters in that space of silence. It's impossible to do deeper spiritual work if you're not in a place of silence, if you're competing with the busyness of the outer world and the disturbance of lots of mental thoughts and disturbances, then that's not going to help you get into a place of deeper spiritual understanding. Ultimately, the truth is silence. Anything that makes a noise isn't absolute truth. Anything that makes noise, including me, is simply a concept in your mind, and concepts in itself aren't the truth. Concepts aren't enlightenment. All concepts can do is kind of focus your awareness into a place that exists beyond the concepts. So if you want to find the deepest truth, you have to go beyond the mind, beyond thought, beyond concept, and the deepest experience of truth you can only get by doing that. I can share with you insights and knowledge. I can help you with your process. I can help you to see things from different perspectives. But as for the truth in itself, the raw, undiluted and pure truth itself, that's something you can only find inside yourself, and it's something you can only find in a place of silence. So truth exists beyond all concepts, beyond all words, beyond all sounds, beyond all sense phenomena. Anything you perceive with your senses, again, it's conceptual, it exists in your mind. So you can't see the truth with your eyes, you can't feel the truth with your hands, you can only know the truth directly, and the only way you can have an experience of the truth, the silence of truth, is a direct knowing. It's just an integration with that other reality, and that's something you can only do beyond the conceptual mind. Now, when you break through the limitations of the conceptual mind, you'll break through into other realities. You'll have all kinds of astonishing mystical experiences. Sometimes it can be very energizing, but at other times it can just be a very profound, deep and silent knowing. Sometimes there aren't any fanfares there. Sometimes on the spiritual path we can get caught up in mystical experiences because they're amazing, they're visionary, they're colourful, they're energizing, they're stimulating and everything else. But the mystical experiences aren't enlightenment in itself, they're just like way stages on the path to a deeper realization. So you don't want to get too caught up in mystical experiences. Yes, we can appreciate them, we can enjoy them. If we have a visionary journey or we astral travel in our dreams and have all kinds of far out experiences, then yes, we can make use of that experience and we can be inspired by that and we can use it for what it's worth. But ultimately you don't want to get caught up in being attached to them, because that's not the end of the journey. That's just a sign you're making some progress, you're breaking through into other realities. But toward the end of the journey it's more important to rest in the silence. Now, in the beginning the ego can't handle silence. The ego kind of gets attached to some of the mystical experiences, and what happens then is one thinks one's only kind of enlightened or plugged in if one's having an amazing mystical experience, or if one's seeing star beings or having some massive Kundalini experience. But the truth of the matter is you're more grounded in a higher reality when you're in a place of quiet in a very ordinary setting, like stillness in the body, stillness of all thoughts, and being present in that space beyond thoughts whilst you're in a body is actually a very high state of awareness to have. And that's something you want to cultivate in your own practice, because that silence is sustaining. At first when you go into that silence it just seems like there's nothing there, there's a void and emptiness. You think, what's the point of just emptying your mind and thinking of nothing, just being in a nothing space? Well, the truth of the matter is when you investigate that nothing state with nothing other than your awareness, you just explore that nothing state from a space of awareness, you'll find that nothing state is actually very much something. So there's another paradox here. First it looks like nothing, and then it seems like something, because it's like a deeper awareness that nothing that you first perceived becomes an everything state. It's a state of awareness that exists in all things, it's part of all things, and it gives rise to all things manifesting this reality. Bodies, objects, the planet, nature, other people, everything comes from that place of so-called nothing. So it's not actually nothing at all, it's an everything. It's the fabric of everything, it's the fundamental building block of the entirety of reality in itself. So once you find the everythingness in this so-called nothing, that silence is no longer a void, so to speak, but instead it's like a field is a better way of describing it. If you think of it as a void, then void brings up thoughts of emptiness, and when you have thoughts of emptiness, and those thoughts of emptiness will produce the experience of emptiness, and thus you're not going to see the everything. So you don't want to try and think your way into this silent reality, you just want to get the conditions ready, have a solid meditation practice, sit in meditation, be grounded, and just allow yourself to observe without becoming attached to your thoughts. Your thoughts will come, they'll go, they'll come and go. Now if a thought comes, you get attached to it, then that thought kind of gets bigger and bigger, and it kind of expands and it draws other thought forms to it, and before you know it, you've got 20, 30, 40 different thoughts firing off, creating a massive complex of thoughts, and that complex of thoughts will show itself as a distraction. Bang, you'll either get up off your meditation cushion, or you'll go into some thinking process about some other aspect of your life. And thinking about your life can be useful at times, but if you're wanting to find this deeper quiet within, then it's necessary to let go and just allow the thoughts to move past. When you allow the thoughts to move past, the gaps between the thoughts expand, and that inner quiet becomes more ever present. Now, if you then take your awareness into that inner quiet and just observe it for what it is, if you just open up and tune in with the energy of it, you'll find it's not a nothing. The original nothingness that you might first perceive becomes a sustaining everything. When you realize that this quiet is actually the foundation of all reality, you'll understand it's also the lifeblood of reality. It sustains you as a sentient being. It's that quiet in it. It's that quiet that enables you to live. If that quiet was taken away, you couldn't possibly exist as a sentient being in a body. So that quiet, that deeper presence of awareness is the sustenance for all spiritual beings. So if we're having challenges sustaining ourselves on the spiritual path, then the work is to go within, to connect more with silence and to find the sustenance there. You'll find if you do that regularly, when you go back into the world after you've been in that silence, you'll be far more energized, you'll be far more insightful, your energy will be much higher, and you're going to attract things into your life with relative ease. If you haven't taken that time in silence, if you haven't taken time to ground in that space of deeper awareness, and then you get caught up in the world, it's going to deplete you. And then when you start trying to create or manifest things are going to get hard work. When the manifestation process slows up or stops, you wonder what the hell is going on, and the truth of the matter is all you've done is become disconnected. So the key when it comes to manifesting and holding your energy in this reality is to stay connected to the inner silence. That's your sanctuary, that's your space where you can go and rejuvenate. If you don't go back in there to do that, then you can become depleted, you can get drained, you can get tired, and all kinds of other situations can become manifest in your life. In that sanctuary of silence, nothing can bother you there. So the more that you're grounded in that silence and you embody the reality of silence in your life, then the easier it's going to be to repel things that are going to disturb that silence. Now, embodying silence in your life doesn't necessarily mean that you stop talking as such. You may still need to talk in the outer. All it means is that you hold the awareness of the silence when you come out of meditation, when you go back into the world after having been in that awareness. You try as much as you can to hold that awareness and keep that awareness as you go about your daily activities, and that will help you to integrate the two apparent conflicting realities of the inner silence of source and the 3D, those two realities can become very integrated once you can take the energy of source into 3D as you operate there. Once you take the energy of the quiet into the 3D, then it's going to help you to stay sustained there. It's going to help you to keep your sanity. If you can hold the awareness of the inner silence all the time, whatever activity you're doing, then you're staying connected at all times. If you ever feel that connection becomes broken or gets cut off in some way, then that's a signal to go back inside to reaffirm that relationship with source and to go deeper into the quiet. So to enjoy a deeper relationship with source, the idea is to become more intimate with it, and the only way you can become more intimate with source is to become more intimate with the silence. As you explore silence more, it will show itself in many different aspects. It's not just like a boring silence, it can be a sustaining silence, it can be an expansive silence, an illuminating silence, a powerful silence, a wise silence, an insightful silence, it can be a loving silence, it can even be a nurturing silence. So once you open up to silence and open yourself to experiencing it, it will show itself in its many different aspects. So this apparent nothingness of the quiet is actually filled with all kinds of different sustaining aspects that can help you on your spiritual path. Thus, silence is really powerful tool for breaking through a lot of our mental resistances and emotional blockages we may have. If we're getting stuck in our lives, we can go back into silence to ground and get insight, and the practice of silence will make us sane in this insane 3D world. Once 3D starts to appear insane in your consciousness, as it quite often does, I have it as well, and that's a sign that the energy of 3D is becoming a bit much. So I just go back in myself and reconnect with that silence. So when I go back into the 3D, things aren't so insane, and it's much easier for me to do my work, and it's easier to stay sustained. So just to summarize what I said in this video, practice of silence is sustaining. It's your gateway to source. If you want to explore source on a deeper level, you can find it within silence. You can explore source by going out there into different dimensions, astral traveling, going through the galactic central sun and everything else. If you go out there far enough, you'll come against source. In the same way, if you go in enough, you'll also come against source as well. So this like inner and outer appears to be two divergent realities, but if you go in enough or out enough, those two lines will basically curve and join again into one integrated reality. So ultimately there's no inner and there's no outer. So going within is your gateway to source. If you slow down your thought processes, get them really slow, find the gaps in between those thought processes, take your awareness in there, and you can put your awareness into the space of silence. When you're in that space of silence, breathe it in, ground it in, be conscious of it, be aware of it, be a witness to it, and hold that energy of silence. This is really crucial. Once you've been in the place of silence and you've grounded that energy in, try and hold it. Don't jump off your meditation cushion, then get involved in some really busy activity too quickly, because that will just suck up all the extra energy you've accumulated. So if you slowly come out of your meditation practice and with awareness go back into your duties of the world, you'll be able to hold that energy more, and that held energy accumulates over a period of time. That translates into power translates into spiritual understanding, power translates into insight, clarity, manifestation, wisdom, freedom from suffering, and the rest of it. Thing to understand is that in silence, karma does not exist. Karma is only part of the thought process. Beyond thought there is no karma. Karma has no power over you there. Karma can only operate when you're operating from a 3D mind state. Thus this inner sanctuary of silence is also a sanctuary from karma. The more you can stay in that silence, the more karmically fortunate you are, and the more you can stay in that silence, and the less you have to go into the outer, which is the antithesis of silence, and thus the less likely you're going to get karmically entangled in things out there that are going to disturb your peace. So ultimately make silence a keystone, a foundation of your spiritual practice. See silence as a place where you can go for nurturance, for energy, for wisdom, for insight. And it's a place where you can go to affirm source, affirming your higher self. When you affirm your higher self, open up to source, you become at one with that truer reality within, and that's the medicine for all karmic issues in this reality. It's the medicine for all discernments, it's the antidote for all kinds of mental conflicts and confusions. Mental conflicts and confusions, when they exist, it simply is there's too much thought going on. There's so much thought going on, the mind can't handle it, and once the mind can't handle the intensity of the thoughts, then confusion and distractions are then likely to follow on from that. So slowing your thoughts down with conscious awareness, not busying your mind, going into silence more often and being in that peace, sustaining yourself from that peace, grounding in that peace, and living from that peace as much as you can in your daily life. And when you do that, you'll notice massive differences. Your health will improve, your insight will improve, your clarity will improve, you'll be able to manifest with much more ease. Things will just happen to you naturally and organically. You won't have to force anything, and as a result your life will just enter into a divine flow, and things will just kind of start happening to you. The blessings and the manifestations that you've been looking to draw into your life will just happen with ease. They come ultimately from source, and source is ultimately silence. Thus it figures, if you want to receive the blessings of source, it's necessary to go into silence, familiarize yourself with that silence, and to take sustenance from that silence. Because when you take sustenance from the silence, the vibration of the silence goes into your body, it gets held in your body, it becomes integrated with your body, and thus it changes your energetic blueprint. When you then go out into the world, that redefined energetic blueprint, which is sustaining itself from quiet, is thus more aligned to ease and blessings. Thus it's going to be very easy to attract things in the outer when you're in a place of silence. If things aren't happening for you in the outer, then simply come back into yourself, reconnect with that silence, get plugged in the source, and then return to the outer, and you'll find things will happen and flow a lot more easily for you as a result. So that's all I'm going to say for today about the matter of silence, and I will speak to you again in the next video. Free Spirit out.